We're live.
Hello!
Hello.
Hello. La la la. Hi, it is Thursday night Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and it's almost fitting that we were fighting right before we came on here. You know why? Because today is the 3rd anniversary of Generational Change.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
Really?
Yeah.
How did I not know that? We started on the 14th?
Yeah.
Wow.
So 3 years ago.
That's cool. How did I not know that?
Well, you don't know. So yes, it is our 3rd anniversary of a show that somehow is small but mighty, but still going. I mean, we are at over 13,000 subscribers, which we can say is better than about 95% of podcasts.
I suppose, but you know what though? That's not the. I mean, we wish we had more subscribers, and yes, that would be nice to be getting more of the message out. But I like doing. The reason I like doing it is to meet the people that we get to have on and talk about the things that we talk about. Like, I would love for it to reach more people, but we don't. I mean, I really kind of selfishly started doing it to use the platform to meet authors and experts and people and have them come on and talk to me so I can learn stuff. And that's just basically how it started. So and it's still doing that. Case in point, we have John Nichols coming on tonight, which is very cool.
Angelica Duenas. So, it's going to be fun. It's going to be like old times, but more like current times.
Yeah. So that's why we do the show. That's why I do the show.
Well, we also do it to transform politics into service.
Yeah.
That was the whole purpose of the campaign. That was the whole purpose of why we volunteer locally. And of course, it's the whole purpose of what the podcast is really centered on.
Yes, that is our message. That is our mission. However, the method and the medium of podcast does lend itself to me being able to pick brains and gather as much information as possible. And it's amazing that I get to speak to people who get paid to lecture and paid to do stuff, and they'll come on here and talk to me for 45 minutes. And it's very cool. That's why I do it.
Well, we always like to have fun. And so for those of you who have obviously been paying attention to the news, we are obviously there's a lot of different issues that we do center on when it comes to populist left politics, but none bigger than labor. And so we all know about the different strikes that are going on in various places. But of course, the biggest one that's of note at this current moment, again, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. That could change. But as of this moment, the biggest strike in this country right now is SAG-AFTRA with the Writers Guild. That is a huge thing. It's so huge that now it's starting to cut into rich people's profits, and they don't like it very much. And they're starting to show their true stripes, as the saying goes.
I think it's starting to be inconvenient. It's starting to be very inconvenient for those people.
When rich people get inconvenienced,
are you talking about?
They get upset.
Yeah. Well, so did you want to do story time? Is that so? We were thinking. I was thinking he wanted to do a story time, and I'm thinking what would really be this? And so I remembered I had done once a greetings from Hypocrisy. So guys, we're going to talk about greetings from Ivory Tower, USA. And this is the stuff that makes me laugh, guys. So I couldn't think of a better way to really encapsulate, because you've got Bill Maher, you've got Drew Barrymore, and to me it's I'm thinking in my head they're scabs totally. And yet we've talked about this where Bill Maher does make a valid point, which is that there are a lot of other working people dependent on the industry who do suffer when these things happen. That is a valid point. However, I suggest that Bill subsidize those people and stand in solidarity with his writers. You fucking douchebag. That's what I would say.
When you have a net worth of over $140 million, when you have a home in the hills that is valued at over $20 million, you are completely disconnected from reality. And that is the only way to describe it in a nice way without being a jerk. I say that because I've watched Bill Maher for many years. Of course, he's evolved over time. But his true evolution isn't necessarily an evolution. It may just be a true unmasking. Bill has probably always been this way. He's just become a little bit more confident in his ability to espouse his true feelings about things.
It does occur to me that people might not know that what we are specifically referencing is that he is going back. His show is going back on.
As is Drew Barrymore.
As is Drew Barrymore's. And Bill Maher's show, though, and he did put out a statement saying that they're not going to be having any of the monologues. They're not going to be having any original written content. So they're not going to be in violation of the strike. They're just going to be doing panel discussions. And I get that. Technically, he's not in violation of the strike. And he did make a good point about the working people. But I think that people like him to sit there and talk about that people don't deserve a living, but then you're concerned about those people. It just really shows that you're full of crap, because if you really just cared about it, you would subsidize those people.
You know who did that? Conan O'Brien, who's a heck of a lot funnier and more talented than you are, Bill, with all due respect. And then, of course, you have the very, the princess herself, Drew Barrymore, who is of not Hollywood royalty like the child of a famous actor. She is a fourth generation.
Right. You don't get more uppity. You don't get more high on the ivory tower.
John Barrymore is a Hollywood, how would you describe him? He's a
one
you
of
could
the
say he's an
original people,
icon.
one of the original people of forming the entire industry in Hollywood.
Yes. That's
the
how
Barrymores are big.
That's how far back this goes.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. And that's not to say that, Drew hasn't had her moments. Obviously, she'll always be the little
So
girl.
is she violating the strike? See, Bill Maher, I don't think is violating the strike. She's going back. She's having SCAB writers come on and write.
Not only is she violating it, but she actually had, it was one thing if they were suggesting this idea that they were removing, protesters from her audience, because this could have easily happened. Earlier this week, the way they were describing it was that they had disruptors in the audience. Well, it turns out they weren't even disruptors. They were wearing WGA strike pins, and not only did they have them remove the pins, they kicked them out as well. So that's how pathetic this is. And it also speaks volumes to the fact that they know what they're doing is wrong, and they're doing it anyway. But let's be honest. Is Drew Barrymore any different than The View? Because The View's still going right now, and no one seems to be saying a damn thing about it, including Oscar winner Whoopi Goldberg.
But I don't know. I don't know which contracts and what rules apply to the strike. There are different things. There's certain things that are not in violation and certain things that are. So I don't know enough to say who's in violation of the strike. Bill Maher is clearly opting to do it in such a way that he is not, but I don't know what these other shows are doing.
Well, we're going to give you a little taste right now of exactly what that's all about. One of the things that I often point to is that you can usually tell a lot about a person based on their past discretions. And with Drew Barrymore, it doesn't get more obvious than being a Hillary Clinton bundler against Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primary. So that kind of says a lot right there, and more or less suggests that her actions are reflective in the decisions that she makes in the political arena. So you're going to get a little taste of that right now.
Is it true that you went to Dillard's? Is it true that you went to Dillard's to grab a wedding dress last minute for your wedding?
Yes, it is.
Oh my God, what happened?
How many did you try on? Only one. I found what I wanted. But here's what happened. So
I love this so much. You are so. Is it true? Is it true that you went to
Colin, whatever this says, it's not working. If you can cue it, please.
Something is awry with the video.
Yep.
Is it true that you went to Dillard's to grab a wedding dress last minute for your wedding?
yes, it is.
Oh my God, what happened?
How many did you try on? Only one. I found what I wanted. But here's what happened. So
I love this so much. You are so important to me as figures in the world of strength and humanity, shining lights on people.
Well, that's what you're doing, my friend.
Every day, Drew.
That's what you're doing.
We got tickets to the Drew Barrymore show today. We had no clue.
No clue there was a strike.
No clue there was a strike. No clue she was.
All right.
So
we don't have a video.
The Clintons got to us.
And we
They
showed
got
up
to us.
and we saw.
The Clintons. Maybe it was the Russians.
Oh yeah, well, just blame the Russians. That'll solve everything.
So we're having technical difficulties with the video, but that's okay.
I think it's playing right. It's a StreamYard error I've gotten before. If you refresh your page, it should fix itself. But I think it's broadcasting fine. I think it's just you guys can't see it.
Really?
Yeah,
no,
it's if you look on YouTube, it's still going through.
What? That's weird.
Something is awry.
It's a StreamYard thing. I've had it a couple of times.
So
yeah.
then we gotta go. Well,
Just hit refresh on your page real quick, and I'll stay here and entertain them.
That's so
on your StreamYard page.
Reload site.
Yes.
yeah.
They'll be back just momentarily. But you guys got to see that a couple of times, so that must have been exciting to see Drew Barrymore slobber over the Clintons like that. Right. And then you got to see the two people there that ended up getting kicked out at the end by the Drew Barrymore show for the crime of wearing 2 WJA pins. Also, sorry, I'm like a ghost in this room right now with wonderful lighting. Do a dance. That's the most I can do.
So I'm guessing the video's over now, and everybody else got to enjoy it without us actually seeing it. Yeah, you saw it. Okay, so I guess we'll just have to imagine what it was like.
All right.
It probably wasn't much.
I'm actually good. I don't really need to be watching some sort of like Drew Barrymore.
Whatever the
Hillary
point is
Clinton.
that it was just a reflection, as I've often said, of where we stand right now politically, and it's not good. And that, of course, speaks volumes to the disconnect between the haves and the have-nots, which is, this whole strike you're doing, it's been good for a little while, but it's time to get serious now. The super rich, powerful are not going to cave to your demands, so just accept that you're going to get crumbs. No, I think that a lot of workers in this country are finally starting to get it, and they're not backing down. And who better to talk about that than with a true progressive writer
I
at the
gotta
nation?
I gotta just.
Oh, you got to put your vest on.
I keep forgetting I need my vest.
John will
Hold on
put
a
your
second.
vest.
I know I've got my vest. I'm serious. This is gonna happen now. I got my vest. All right. We're talking. I'm ready. I wish we had some place to go somewhere down here.
He's a writer for the nation. He's Wisconsin's finest, and he is a very special guest returning once again to Generational Change. John Nichols, welcome back, my friend.
Well, it's great to be with you both, and we will see what happens in the next couple hours. But I think we're talking on strike night, and you being Floridians may not fully understand the dynamic here. But I grew up just outside Kenosha, Wisconsin, which was the home of a massive American Motors Company plant with 15,000 workers, and I know from my childhood, when there's a auto industry strike, that is a big deal. It's a big deal not just for the union and its members. It's a big deal for the whole country.
Yeah. I hate to say like I feel kind of excited about this because the whole situation is pathetic that it's that we've gotten to this point and that people have to be begging for what's just owed them. But yet I am, and I'm so, and I love Sean Fain. I do. I sit there and I kind of get like, I love him. And he says things like every billionaire is a failed policy and stuff. And I'm just, it makes the heart pitter patter, And so I'm very, like, I hate to say it, but I'm excited about this.
Well, you don't have to hate to say it. Look, as Sean Fain and other people have said, the union doesn't want this strike. This isn't their idea. This is a strike caused by the big three, by these big three companies. And the reason is pretty simple. They have taken in massive amounts of money, $22 billion in the first 6 months of this year, $250 billion in recent years. It's just unimaginable amounts of money. And they have not shared it with the workers. They haven't even begun to have, sort of any kind of equitable distribution of the incredible wealth that these companies control. And so the union has engaged in serious, thoughtful, responsible negotiations. They made big demands, which they should have. They then have, in those negotiations, accepted that some things they won't get. They've been, remarkably reasonable, and the companies just have not taken it seriously. And so this is when you have a strike. And again, it isn't necessarily something that you get excited about, but you are excited for it.
Yes.
And that's the important thing here, because what the United Auto Workers is doing, or what the union's doing, is laying down a marker. And this is a marker in an industry that has historically led all American industry. Auto strike has historically been the biggest steel strike. And so what they're saying is, look, if we have to walk out to assure that workers get fair portion of the wealth of these companies to assure that retirees are treated decently, to assure that you get your pension, to get rid of multi-tier contracts that pay younger workers less than older workers, and to start to realize the technological change that's taking place in this country, that we are moving toward EV vehicles, right? And so as a result, that's going to change production, and they want to have a say in how that change goes. And also, we're deep in a transformation of all industry driven by AI and automation. And they want to make sure that as that transformation occurs, and as you have perhaps fewer people working in plants at much faster levels of work, right? So you've had a speed up of work, right? It's harder in many ways because there's so much more demanded of you, that workers can be paid 40 hours pay for 32 hours work. That's not an unreasonable demand. That's what they're doing in Europe to adjust to the automation of auto plants and other plants. And they're just saying we need to do that here. All of this put together is a visionary set of demands rooted in the moment that we are in. If the UAW wins, it sets a different tenor for all of our labor negotiations going forward in industries across the board. If they lose, well, I'll tell you, it's one of the biggest blows that workers, not just in the auto industry, but across all industries, will be faced with. So it's a big deal. And yeah, people are excited. People are energized. If you look at the pictures from across the country, workers are ready. They're strike ready. They're ready to go out if they have to.
Yeah, and I actually think not only are what are they asking for is so completely reasonable, I actually think that they should be entitled to arrearages since they lost their cost of living adjustment, whatever that would be. I mean, I know that, I don't know if that's, but like they should be entitled to arrearages.
Well, there is an effort to restore the cost of living. And that's not exactly what you're talking about, but
no.
I think there's a consciousness of this and I think really, Jen, that's the root of the whole thing, that during the pandemic, these workers went into these plants and kept production going. In fact, they even, in some places, adjusted the plants to do, all sorts of very important work beyond their traditional industrial work. And so they made real sacrifices. They made real commitments. I think they did so as part of something that a lot of Americans bought into, which was the idea that there was going to be shared sacrifice, right? And we come out of the pandemic. It's certainly not completely over because there's still people getting sick, but we come out of the worst of the pandemic. And what we find is the companies, banked massive profits. Their shareholders are richer than ever. The companies are literally doing stock buybacks as they're negotiating because they have so much money sitting around, and yet they say to the workers, no, we can't begin to make you whole for what you sacrificed during the pandemic and even before that. And so you're exactly right, Jen. I think they're not going to necessarily get a classic arrearage payment, but I think what they can get is a fair increase in wages, which would be very large, very significant increase in wages, not simply because of the work they're going to be doing going forward, but also because, as you suggest, the sacrifices they've made already.
Yeah, from long before COVID. I mean, we could go back just in recent history to Obama bailing out the auto industry.
That's right.
So we go back to, what was that, 08, 09, whenever that was. 09.
It was.
And so, that was when they were willing to take one for the team and give up whatever that negotiation, contract was at that time period. And they gave up their cost of living allowance.
Well,
so that's a chunk of time.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of time. I mean, many people have gone to retirement in that time.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of things to put in the mix here too that are important. You have to understand, if the unions had not, gone along with all those demands, the American auto industry might well have been ruined. Right. Yeah. I mean, it was a very tenuous moment. And so the unions made massive sacrifices that corporations would never make. Right. I mean, the fact of the matter is that these workers, they took a lot of risks. They did what they could to save an industry, and they succeeded. They saved an industry. There are many people in the union movement who think that what was demanded of them even back in 2008, 2009 was way more than they should have given. There's one of the reasons I think that Shawn Fain is head of the UAW at this point is because he comes out of a more militant sector within the union that has said, look, we've done a lot of compromises for a long time. We need to start making bigger demands. But whatever you think about that past, what you do have to understand is that this union has suffered tremendous battery over the last 20, 30, 40 years. We have seen dozens of auto plants close. We've seen communities devastated. We've seen the size of their workforce decrease because of automation, because of outsourcing, because of the transfer of production, not just to foreign countries, but also, the kind of restructuring of the industry within the U.S. so that much of the production has moved to southern states where there is not unionization. This is not the big three we're talking about, but
Right.
other production by other companies. And so, they've gone through a lot. And I think they're ready to make a demand. They're ready to say, we're not sacrificing anymore. We're not going to, give up so that everything else works for the investors and the CEOs. And you know what's interesting about it? This is my favorite part. In fact, I got a piece going up tomorrow for The Nation on this. According to polling, 75% of Americans, I'm going to pause and repeat that. 75% of Americans support the UAW in this circumstance. I mean, that's astronomical.
It's
you can't
huge.
get that level of support for anything.
No, that's really big. And that's one of those things that really proves what we say repeatedly over and over and over again, that the course to change is through labor and it is nonpartisan. Because when you look at people in that movement that are supporting the UAW, it is across the political spectrum and it has nothing to do with party.
What I do find to be very interesting, John, is the fact that this is really the third rail for most politicians. Yep. And obviously Bernie has their back. Joe, of course, is not touching this. And you've got Trump coming out and support of the workers, but telling them you totally got to end the union. It's like, it's. But
Trump has always been a bad player as regards unions and as regards these issues. And Biden is in many ways a traditional Democrat in this regard, or at least a traditional contemporary Democrat, which is very cautious, sympathy for the union, but not a high level of support. But what's interesting, and to me, what's really fascinating is the number of younger members of Congress, and of course, one older member, Bernie Sanders, who really are stepping up in this regard. Today,
just remember, I'm young at heart. I'm not an old man. I may be old,
yes.
but mentally, I'm still young.
He is young at heart, and I think that if they do strike, and we still, we're talking a little bit before, so we'll see what happens, but it certainly seems to be heading that way. If they do, I think Senator Sanders will be at the strike rally on Friday at the launch. So, I mean, he isn't just sending a tweet out showing support. He is absolutely committed to this struggle, and he's made that very clear. And again, he's not alone. AOC has been, very ardent in her support. Today, I think it was The Guardian, Shawn Fain wrote an op-ed with Ro Khanna, the congressman from California. That's a very big deal because Khanna is somebody who represents Silicon Valley, thought of as very much a kind of a congressman who gets the tech side of these things, automation, AI, all that. And what Khanna is saying, along with Shawn Fain, is that this strike is absolutely essential if it does go forward, because it isn't just about the industry as we know it now. It's about defining the industry going forward so that as this industry becomes greener, and it will become greener because of a lot of U.S. federal government money that is encouraging that process, as it becomes greener, it remains unionized and that workers get fair pay and fair position in the workplace. And so there is support from there. You're seeing support in some areas, but it is still so narrow. And what I would tell you is this: we have to be careful not to, identify the exceptions to the rule and say that's some sort of new rule. We have to recognize that still the Democratic Party needs to do a dramatically better job in supporting the unions that support the Democratic Party. I mean, this isn't a complicated thing. And I still don't think we're at the level of, enthusiastic, ardent support that you need in a circumstance like this. Although the people are so in favor of the strike that I think the Democrats might even come around.
Well, I'm not convinced that the Democrats are going to come around, because I still think this comes down to one key issue here, and that is, how is the Democratic Party infrastructure, especially at the federal level, funded? There's been a heavy dose of debate, as we've seen of late, from various content creators and such, that are debating the merits of, Biden's reelection, Dr. Cornel West running in the Green Party, and where things lie in terms of, are the Democrats better than Republicans? I would surmise that the Democrats are better than Republicans, depending on where you are in the United States.
And where you are in the socioeconomic ladder.
If you're in the upper Midwest and you're looking at your neighbors to the west and what they have done over the past year in particular, with a very slim margin in the Twin Cities in terms of what you would think would be able to accomplish. And they've accomplished a lot. Something as simple as free student lunch, which is literally pennies in the bucket when you really get down to it. That the upper Midwest Democrats are better than Republicans, but that's a very, very slim amount of where other state Democrats, like our state and other states,
it's not good.
It's not good. And
It's
then at the federal level, it's really bad. But what we're going to do now is we're going to play a clip. And I think you know who Tim Gurner is. A lot of people are now finding out very quickly who this gentleman is, because what he actually represents is the voice of the ruling class. This is how they really feel about workers. This is not a one-off situation, because if it was, all of them in unison would be coming out saying, we don't think this way. We don't. The silence is what's deafening.
It speaks loudly.
They want it to go away quick.
Amen. Very loudly. And this is very much setting up for what could be one of the big, substantially effective strikes that we've probably ever seen, at least since the days of Reagan. So here we go.
I think the problem that we've had is that we have people decided that they didn't really want to work so much anymore through COVID, and that has had a massive issue on productivity. Tradies have definitely pulled back on productivity. They have been paid a lot to do not too much in the last few years, and we need to see that change. We need to see unemployment rise. Unemployment has to jump 40-50% in my view. We need to see pain in the economy. We need to remind people that they work for the employer, not the other way around. I mean, there's been a systematic change where employees feel the employer is extremely lucky to have them, as opposed to the other way around. So it's a dynamic that has to change. We've got to kill that attitude, and that has to come through hurting the economy, which is what the whole global, the world is trying to do. The governments around the world are trying to increase unemployment to get that to some sort of normality. And we're seeing it. I think every employer now is seeing it. I mean, there is definitely massive layoffs going off. People might not be talking about it, but people are definitely laying people off, and we're starting to see less arrogance in the employment market, and that has to continue, because that will cascade across the cost balance.
Oh, I don't know who that is. I don't know anything about that man, but I gotta tell you, not a fan. I've never seen him before ever, but really, wow.
Let me tell you, he is the universal placeholder for all bosses. And the way to understand him, and somebody tweeted this the other day. They had the video up, and then they said, "Your boss thinks this about you," and I think that's the important thing to understand, is that in industry, and particularly among the investor class that drives industry, by the way, you can still have a decent person who owns a company, and there are some out there. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is that if you are an investor-driven company, right, and that's what this guy represents, what they're concerned about is massive profits. And if workers are making demands, if workers are just asking for a fair share, that's unreasonable. That's beyond what they can handle. And so he's stating, the funny thing about it is people have become very excited about this clip, inappropriately so, because it's so blunt. But he's stating basic premises of business. If you go to business school, you're going to learn stuff like this. You're also going to learn not to say it in public. But the fact is that I think it's great that you play that clip because we get a juxtaposition of the two things we're talking about right now.
Oh,
Yeah.
And-
Oh, I love it when the plutocrats say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, but also that we're really on a knife's edge right now as a country. We already lost one of the biggest fights, and that was that during the pandemic, the response of the federal government, and this is Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals, was socialism, right? They gave money to people. They literally spent a lot of money to make sure that society survived. That is a social democratic response. That's not a libertarian response, right? And unfortunately, we've seen the government move back from that. We've seen, both political parties move back from a social democratic response. And so now we just got the report out on poverty in America. Poverty is shooting upwards. Child poverty has doubled over the last year. Why? Because they got rid of the programs that were actually working to reduce poverty. And that was mostly the Republicans, but a couple of Democrats, Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, who's now an independent who sits as a Democrat. But remember, those people are still, Manchin and Sinema, still accepted within that Democratic caucus. And so they're literally impoverishing children in order to satisfy their campaign donors. And so, my friend, when you suggest you're a little cynical about whether the Democratic Party is going to come through at the level that it needs to, that cynicism is rooted in some realities here, and realities that are painful. So we lost that. We have, at least for the short term, lost an important battle, right? To maintain that level of social investment, that level of commitment that you saw during the pandemic. The question now is whether we're going to lose the battle of this low unemployment, high employment period, right? And what we got is a period now where workers can make demands, where workers can leave jobs and get other jobs. If we end up in a situation where the economy shifts some and workers are no longer making demands, right? We're gonna go right back to where we were before 2018, 2009, back to this 2018, 2019 point. And that's not a good point to go back to. As a society, we should be trying to make sure that our government is on the side of working class people to make sure that there is economic and social and racial justice. We should also have an arrangement, an organization of our economy that makes sure that workers can make demands, that they can make reasonable demands. And I really think we're in a moment that's going to decide which way we go on that. I think the UAW strike, if indeed it goes forward, is a huge part of that. I think with the Teamsters, the struggle the Teamsters had is a big part of that. And we should not forget the SAG, AFTRA, and Writers Union strikes, which go to the heart of many of these issues. People who live their lives in a precarious economic situation. They don't have good, steady pay. They also now are threatened by AI technology and other changes. They are simply seeking to make sure that they've got a fair say, that they've got a place at the table, that they can have some guidance over the future of their industry. And we're going to be very focused on the UAW perhaps in the days and weeks to come. But we should never lose sight that SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild are out there fighting the same struggle, different industry, but the same kind of struggle.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about all of these different things, and obviously, I would be a big supporter of the idea of a general strike because I think that, and we are seeing a lot of other unions come out in solidarity with UAW.
Yes.
I mean, we see that happen. It's something that does happen. But when we hear people like CEOs saying the quiet part out loud, it's like I can't help but think, yeah, because the reason that exists, it's supposed to, it has to. They are required. They are required to maximize profits. It's like there's no safeguard that against that. That is supposed to be what they're meant to do. Their job is not to make sure workers are taken care of. They are meant to maximize profit.
No, they're hero.
It's unfettered, and we have no seemingly regulation over that.
Their hero, Margaret Thatcher, right, used to say that there's no such thing as society, right? She was always very against the notion of kind of having some sense of a social good, right? That we are part of something bigger than ourselves, and we ought to make sure that it works for everybody who is a part of this society. She went after the miners' unions. She went after, destroyed a lot of unions, and frankly destroyed a lot of parts of the United Kingdom during her tenure. And so now, of course, she's an absolute hero to them. And I always remind people, as somebody spent a lot of time in England during that period, when somebody, a Republican politician or even a Democratic politician says how impressed they are with Margaret Thatcher, or how impressed they are with Ronald Reagan, what they're really telling you is they like this idea of, using the government to knock down unions, using the government to diminish the working class, and to do a massive redistribution of the wealth upwards. That's what they're really saying to you. And the fact is that, again, it's a knife's edge situation. The unions are making some real demands right now. It's exciting. It is significant. But at the same time, we have a Supreme Court with Samuel Alito that's, trying to find ways to undermine unions at every turn. And so it's a big deal. And we're going to have to divide up on this, right? We're going to have to take our sides on this, as the old union song, "Which Side Are You On?" says. You are either going to be with the union or you're not. And for the Democratic Party, that's a big deal, because the fact of the matter is, I live in Wisconsin, a state where Scott Walker attacked and undermined, really ruined our public employee unions. They still exist, but they were dramatically weakened. And you know what the impact of that was? The impact of that was that the Republican Party became much more viable politically. There is a connection between undermining unions, ruining unions, and how elections turn out. And if Democrats don't realize that, if they don't figure that out, they're going to find themselves in a situation where the union movement, which has been so supportive of the Democratic Party, is weakened to an extent that it can't save the Democratic Party from itself. And so I would suggest to you that there is a practical political argument for Democrats to be militantly pro-union.
But yet, and they are pro-union, they're just not pro-labor. So the thing is that this is, what are they to do, right? So on the one hand, they're looking at this impending big strike. But on the other hand, the bosses that are having these or refusing to negotiate, those are their donors. So the people that are at the table that are refusing to negotiate with the workers are the donors of the Democratic Party. How does this go?
And this is also a reflection of where things have changed over the last 8 years, because the Democratic Party made a choice. They decided that they were not going to go the way of Bernie Sanders. They were going to go the way, ironically, of basically Mitt Romney. And that is essentially what the party has become. And now this opening, even if it's just placating to, lip service, if you will, which is what Trump is.
Yeah, it's faux populism.
Which is what Trump is really, really good at, because he's a hell of a showman. He's the greatest show on earth in politics right now. And as a result, millions of those people in the upper Midwest in particular have decided, well, the Democratic Party clearly is not going to represent me. I know the Republican Party is definitely not going to represent me, but maybe we might get lucky with Trump. And to me, that is the biggest anomaly we face right now in the political arena, because there is this overflowing swath of working class people in this country who desperately want to get behind a populist movement for the working class. And right now, Bernie can only do so much when he's basically on a leash, and he's only going to be able, to his credit, still excite people to support labor. But when push comes to shove, the people that need to be supporting labor at the highest level, something as simple, John, as, and again, maybe they've been out there, maybe they haven't, but between Representatives Schiff, Porter, and Lee, I haven't seen one of them show up at the SAG-AFTRA WGA strike in Los Angeles.
I think Barbara Lee has.
Okay, so
I don't want to hold myself to that entirely, but I do believe I've seen some images there. And again, somebody may prove me wrong on that, but I get your point. And
So what's going to happen? So what's going to happen now? So now, with all due respect to SAG-AFTRA, WGA, they don't affect the economy. With all due respect, the way that UAW will affect the economy if this goes down, and if the only two people in this country at a high level in the political arena, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, are the only people who are going to say anything about this, and AOC, got to give AOC her credit too. That is not good, as Trump would say.
No, it's got it. Look, the Democrats have to be on those picket lines. They have to be strongly supported this, and it is again. I wish I could tell you you're just doing it because it's the right thing to do, right? Because it's a morally right thing to do, to stand with workers who are making a demand. When workers are on strike, you don't cross picket lines. The basic premises of these things, but it is also practically smart politically, right? It is simply something that makes sense. When 75% of the American people are with the UAW, when 72% in the recent Gallup poll are with SAG-AFTRA and the Writers Guild, I mean, these numbers are astronomical. The people actually, they know what's at stake here. These may not be labor economists sitting around talking about every detail of it, but they know that if these unions win, their circumstance is going to be better. That's good at this point, to have unions be stronger, to have them win these fights. It's going to have an impact across society. Polling tells us that now a large majority of Americans believe that when unions win, the U.S. economy gets better, right? And so we have broken through a lot of barriers here. There's an immense amount of anti-union propaganda in this country, and it infuses our politics, it infuses our media, and it comes, you see it all the time. The workers' demands are unreasonable, blah blah blah. They're going to ruin the industry, blah blah blah. All this stuff like this. I even see cartoons during this recent struggle where they're portraying the unions as some sort of big demanding bad guy, right? Well, no. That's not the case. It's never been the case. But what's fascinating is people are waking up to that. So this is a moment when you jump, to the front of the parade, right? It's like if the energy is heading in this strongly pro-union direction, go with it, right? Do what is politically smart and what is morally right. Unfortunately, I will tell you that we have a situation where a lot of Joe Biden supporters will run around and say, he's the most pro-labor president in American history. The problem with that, of course, is what's the measure of a pro-labor president, right? Is it that you say pro-labor things? Well, then Dwight Eisenhower was a very, very good pro-labor president, right? What?
So was Nixon.
Yeah, Nixon wasn't too bad in that regard. Or do you apply a more reasonable measure, which is union membership going up, right? Is it increasing? Now, under Roosevelt, when Roosevelt came in, about 5% of Americans were in unions. When he finished his tenure, it was something in the range of 30% in the non-agricultural sector. So that's a pretty big bump. When Eisenhower was president, it went even higher. We got up higher, at a higher level than when Roosevelt was there. It wasn't as big a bump, but it kept going up. And so the fact of the matter is that we have presidents that we can look at and say, wow, when they were in office, big things happened, right? Unions got stronger. And I'm not here to beat up on Joe Biden. No. I want to emphasize, Joe Biden got dealt a difficult hand. He got a Senate that was, closely matched. He got a House in the second half of his first term that is controlled by Republicans. I understand all of the politics here, and I'm not here to tell you, that any of this would have been easy. But what I can tell you is the one thing you can do, even if you can't get the House to do what you want it to do, even if you can't get the Senate to do what you want it to do, you can, as President of the United States, say, I'm on the side of these workers. I think their demands are just. I support what they are doing. You can say that. It is not an unreasonable thing to say. And again, that goes way beyond, all the questions of what you can do legislatively, what you can do in other ways. It's that simple commitment from the top that you're with the union.
You know, John, this is a great transition to our last topic, which of course is what's going to happen now with President Biden. And, you know, if I was advising the president, I mean, I was a congressional campaign manager, and you have to have some understanding about how to put out a good statement. If I was putting out a statement on behalf of the president in terms of his pro-labor, in this case, pro-union record, I would say he's the most pro-union president since Reagan. That's not a stretch. There's no question that the trends are definitely moving in the right direction, because with obviously what he did to this, what happens when we go live?
Turn down a phone here.
No.
My apologies.
If I'm again, there will be no sidestepping, breaking the railroad.
I was going to say, how are we not like that? Is a huge.
But if
thing.
you're even attempting to make the case, like I see all of the paid, shills, if you will, on social media that are all Joe is this, that, and other thing, and all I'm thinking is, listen, sell something that's plausible, even if it's not true. You sell something that is incomprehensible, people are going to dislike you even more. And that's why now it's going to be very interesting, because, look, do I think that they're going to bring actual impeachment proceedings against Joe? I'm not convinced that they're going to go there. I think they're going to test the waters and see what it will do to his numbers. But 2/3 of the Senate and the vice president have to say impeach the guy. Otherwise, you're just wasting time and energy.
Not going to happen.
Well, that's why it is.
Yeah.
That's why it's theater.
Well,
this is theater.
It is. And it frankly has nothing to do with Biden. It is entirely to do with the Republican caucus. And it's entirely McCarthy trying to keep some managerial role with his own caucus, which he's struggling with each day. But that aside, the point that you're making here is these are important points. And look, I will tell you this. I think that Joe Biden will probably be the Democratic nominee in 2024. Political parties don't shift their candidate, even when that candidate isn't doing that well. It's the history on this is pretty strong. So I think it's likely that he remains that he is in fact the nominee. And I also think that there is a decent chance that he could beat Trump. That is a real possibility, maybe even a likelihood. But this is what I'm going to tell you. Unless Joe Biden runs for re-election as somebody who is willing to piss people off, willing to make people angry, right? Willing to do what Roosevelt did when Roosevelt said, I welcome their hatred to the bankers, right? Unless Joe Biden is willing to be controversial, there is no way that he is going to pull in, is not only get himself reelected, but pull in the kind of majorities you need in the House and the Senate to do anything in a second term. And so the risk that you face here is the prospect that Joe Biden gets reelected, but he's got the same or even a worse Congress than he's got right now, a Senate that is even stacked against him, even more so. And that's an awful game, right? Because that puts Joe Biden in a position in his second term of having to negotiate to the right? Now, he may veto something, he may say no to something, but it's sort of a perfect scenario for corporate America, right? Because corporate America's got a Democratic president making deals with a Republican Congress to do things that are, at least bending toward the right. And so, I mean, when we look at the politics of this, what you have to think about is, what does Joe Biden want to do with his second term? If we give him that second, if we, accept that he could have that second term, he may well get it. What does he want to do with it? Does he want to, spend 4 years, literally at best saying no, and maybe at worst managing, a move to the right for the country? Or does he want to actually govern? If he wants to actually govern, he's got to do two things, in my view. And I've said this again and again. I'm very firm on this. Number one, he has to take some very controversial stands. Yes, of course, he's got to back the unions when they're out on strike. You do it and you take the hit from Fox News, right? Or maybe even you take the hit from the Republicans who run for president, because you say, wow, he's really pro-union. Okay, well, so are 75% of the American people. So that's not a bad place to be. but you take the hit on some other things too. You actually take stands on Medicare for all, Green New Deal, stuff that I know you two like, I like, but frankly, that poll really, really well. And yes, take the hit even from the donor class to some extent, right? But do it, because then you're actually running to try and win something, right? You're running big, you're going for something. And I don't see that coming yet. I mean, I'm talking to you from New Hampshire. I'm up here writing about, this state. And, there's talk that
Great state, by the way.
What's that?
Great state.
Yeah, we like it.
I like New Hampshire. I like it a lot.
Well, New
but
England's just an amazing place to be. It's history, weather, all of it. It's food, you name it. It's just great.
I'm glad it has approval. And but I will tell you that I hear a lot of people up here who are very frustrated that Biden isn't going to run here because of the DNC rule changes, right? He's going to run in South Carolina, where there's not much happening at this point, and that. But up here, people like to see the candidate. They really like to see them physically appear. And, I was struck by this. Ro Khanna, who we mentioned before, he was this main speaker at the labor breakfast in Manchester, New Hampshire on Labor Day, right? Got a great response and actually said some nice things about Biden. And I guess somebody from the Teamsters Union said something nice about Biden too. But by and large, Biden barely came up, right? At the labor breakfast, a year out from the election. That's not how you do this. Again, I'm being ridiculously practical here. I'm not talking about my values or my ideals or the things that I actually, where I think the party should be. I wrote a book about that, and I'm glad to talk about it at length. What I'm talking about is just pure practical politics.
Strategy.
Yeah.
Well, that's why when you said that,
do the things that are popular.
When you said that like that reminds me of him so much. He's like, that's not how you do this. It's like, but this is what proves, I feel like, my point, which is they don't want to, not only don't they want to, they don't care. I also don't think they care if they lose. And for them, it's no skin off their back, really. They make money, win or lose, they win.
Let's play this clip really quick to give people an idea of exactly what they're coming at Joe with and how are they really going to respond to it, I think is the big question. Here we go.
Began to comply. No continuing resolutions, individual spending bills or bust, votes on balanced budgets and term limits, subpoenas for Hunter Biden and the members of the Biden family who've been grifting off of this country, and the impeachment for Joe Biden that he so richly deserves.
Is something going to happen or not this week? I'll give it to you first, Marjorie. Ladies first.
Well, I certainly hope so. And after watching those videos you showed of our president of the United States, maybe we should be calling for the 25th Amendment, not just impeachment inquiry.
Oh, it's always such a, it's always, you know what it is with her? It's like being right in the middle of a Mensa meeting with that one. I can't even contain myself.
The funny thing is, John, and you've been in the game for a long time. The one thing the Republicans always prove when it comes to the Democrats, anything you can do, I can do better. If you think that you can claim that the election was rigged in 2016, which they did, now we're going to do it even worse. And now that you've decided to impeach the former president twice, watch what we do. We'll come up with anything and we'll throw it and make it stick.
What are their charges of it? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, like their charges, as even Republicans, mainstream Republicans in Congress have said, is they haven't seen anything that rises, even to the ballpark of a high crime or misdemeanor. I wrote a book on impeachment. I have historically been a strong advocate for impeachment as a tool for presidential accountability. It's not about the individual. It's about the office. What do you allow the person who occupies the office to do, right?
Yeah.
And if you fail to hold occupiers of the office to account, then the next person who comes there basically says, well, I know I can do these things because they didn't hold them to account for that. So they never completed an impeachment of Richard Nixon for everything he did in Watergate, which, by the way, had a lot of campaign finance issues involved with, a lot of money issues there. They never impeached Reagan for Iran-Contra. They never impeached the Bushes for their illegal and immoral wars. They never impeached, I mean, and I'm listing a lot of Republicans, but you can find things on Democrats in the past as well. And so you end up in a situation where we have diminished impeachment to such a level now, right, that it has become just a silly partisan tool. It's not the constitutional tool of accountability because we didn't use it in the right way when we should have done so.
Right.
And
many times,
exactly. Many times, and for illegal and immoral wars that were not declared.
Yes.
And so we end up in a situation now where, I mean, impeachment is just it's a talking point. It's a way of saying, it's like a parent saying, I'm really serious about this. Right? It's not, it doesn't, there isn't a reality to it. But I think if you listen to Matt Gaetz there in that clip, that's an important thing. Because what he was talking about was something else altogether. He was talking about bringing government to a standstill, right? Rendering government fully dysfunctional with, refusing to do continuing resolutions and things of that nature. Again, I'll go back to my point of suppose Joe Biden is reelected narrowly in 2024, but he has a Republican Senate and maybe even a Republican House. Not guaranteed, but let's suppose that happens. Is anything going to be better than it is now? No, it's going to be dramatically worse. It's going to be uglier. And Matt Gaetz will, I would argue, continue to rise in influence and power. Others like him do. And so you end up in a situation where, if the Democrats don't take seriously their responsibility to seek a governing majority, right, to seek the ability to actually govern, then they have the potential to really, put us on track, not maybe just something as bad as if Trump was president, but to something pretty bad. And then the question is, well, what do you do to win a governing majority? Well, maybe you do the things that 75% or 80% of Americans favor. Maybe you come out strong for unions. Maybe you come out strong for healthcare as a right. Maybe you come out strong for a transition of our economy that makes sure we have good jobs, but we don't burn the planet. Maybe you do a host of things that might actually energize a lot of disenfranchised and disenchanted voters. That's what Bernie Sanders tried to do as presidential candidate in 2016 and 2020. And what did he say? He said it was a political revolution. He wasn't, it was an argument that you do politics differently. I'm not here to suggest to you that the Democratic National Committee, as it's currently constituted, is going to launch a political revolution. But I would suggest to you that practical politics argues that they ought to be moving toward much more militant and much more controversial positions. Not controversial with you and me, but controversial with media. Take the hit.
With corporate America. It's only controversial with their corporate overlords.
Yeah. Be attacked, but be willing to be attacked for being too pro-union. It's okay. So, 3/4 of Americans are pro-union. Be willing to be attacked for saying that, we want healthcare for all. Be willing to be attacked for saying that we want to end child poverty in America. And we want a majority in Congress that will allow us to do that. Run on those things. Run on something real. You know what would happen? We'd have all sorts of screaming and yelling about it, right? But we'd actually stop talking about Donald Trump for a couple days.
Oh, but that does not profit.
You're talking about something actually interesting, which is what a governing majority that wanted to accomplish something might do.
I think the only way that Joe has any chance, and again, I think his chances are very, very slim, because of the fact that there are multiple issues, not just from his lack of taking charge from a populist left perspective when he became president. This country needed to move to the populist left post-Trump, and they went in the almost complete opposite direction, to the detriment of this country. And now you're seeing why Trump is leading Biden right now in all the polls, and we know there's a silent Trump vote on top of that. So when you add those layers together, there's only one option that Joe really has. If he's going to make it to another term, he is the chief executive of this country. He has executive authority at his disposal. There are a lot of things that he could do with a Congress that will not work with him. And this is why, in my humble opinion, everyone has their own opinion, but to me, there's a reason why I hold Teddy Roosevelt as our greatest president, because he always made it clear that if the legislative branch is not going to act on behalf of the American people, then the executive branch must take charge and do so. He became known as the first real executive order president, and he is regarded as one of the top 3 or 4 presidents who's ever served. I believe that Joe, at his disposal, could do a lot of these things. And I can remember, and this also goes to show you how far the party has shifted in the wrong direction, when you have the comfortable suburban liberals saying, oh, he can't do the executive orders and this and that. He's already done 70 as president. FDR did over 5,000. Like you've got to just get out of this mindset of what can and cannot be done.
Look, can I, just to give you a sense of this, just one other quick thing here.
Sure.
Lost to history. Eisenhower appointed people to the U.S. Supreme Court without Senate approval. He did temporary appointments to the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, you look back, why did Eisenhower do that? Because he's like, oh, I'm president. We gotta, I can do that, right? We are so far from a point where we have a president of the United States who actually exercises all the power that is associated with the presidency. And by the way, then you can actually have an impeachment fight, right? Then maybe the other side says, "Oh, you went too far," or maybe the courts say you went too far. But we're not even in the ballpark of it at this point. And one of the things that I think is perhaps it brings us full circle on our conversation here. Why are 75% of people pro-union right now? Why are people so overwhelmingly? Why are more people in favor of the UAW strike than actually say they like unions, right? Because we live in a time where people want to see action. They genuinely believe that if there isn't action, if things aren't done in ways to actually ease the pain, to make people's lives better, that things are going to get worse, right? And so there's a demand for that, and I think that there's a lot of skepticism about Trump. I think people saw Trump in 4 years and talked a lot about doing things, but didn't actually do it. And maybe to the good, because many of the things he would have done would have been really bad, even worse, right? But I think there's a great skepticism about Trump. I don't think that you say there's a silent Trump vote. My sense is that there's also a silent Biden vote. There's a portion of those people that are that say they're undecided that might well end up with Biden, right? But because we know that there's going to be some dividing up there, right? And that at the end of the day, if the polls are close, it's a reflection of the fact that the voting class of America is divided, clearly divided. Then the question is, well, how do you get anybody new there? I would argue that there's very little mobilization that Trump can do, right? Or that the Republicans can do. They can't bring that many new people into the game because of the people who are not voting right now. When you look at the polling data, most of them are overwhelmingly to the left, right? They're especially young people. And it's true that abortion rights and some other issues have brought a lot of young people into the process. But if you want to get them into the process at the level that you want to, you need to be running on the issues that they care about. 88% of young people, 88% across all ideological boundaries, across all partisan boundaries, are pro-union, right? That's higher than it blows all the numbers out. And so maybe if I was running for president of the United States, I would say, I want to be reelected. I want a Democratic Congress because I want to really seize control of this process, make sure we pass the PRO Act, make sure that we staff up the NLRB, make sure that we staff up the Labor Department in every way that we can, so that at the end of my second term, we've doubled the level of unionization in the United States. And you say, yeah, I think young people would actually say, those folks working at Starbucks, those folks working at the Amazon plant would actually say, all right, so you're saying that if I come and vote for you, now I know we have a lot of skepticism about politicians, stuff like that, but so you're saying if I come and vote for you, I get a union out of this? I think you could mobilize a lot of voters on that.
Right, which proves that I just don't think they care to.
Yeah.
We'll see. I just don't think they care to. I don't think they care to win.
Yeah. Well,
I'd
like to be proven right. I'd like to have you proven wrong.
I would be honestly. We'll come back and we'll reassess.
Yes.
I wrote in my book, The Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party. I argued that pretty much at every turn, the party has stumbled over the last 80 some years. And so, look, I'm not naive, but again, what I'm talking about here is practical politics. And I would like to imagine that practical politics might lead folks to do the right thing.
Well, that goes without saying, and you are doing the right thing. You are the definition of a true journalist.
We'll reconvene the focus group after the primary.
We'll definitely do that. And yes, listen, you are always more than welcome here. And of course, we would love to, when you do come back, talk about the book, Fight for the Soul of the Democratic Party. Maybe Bernie will show up, maybe he won't.
No.
But before you go, John, please let everybody know about the event that you, Nina Turner, and Harvey Kay have coming up very soon with Wisconsin Our Revolution.
Yeah, we're going to be in up in, I think it's Pewaukee, Wisconsin. I wish I could tell you. You may know the details better than I. You've got them in front.
That's right in Milwaukee. I know that.
Yeah. And what we're doing is there's really an effort to kind of get Our Revolution, focused more on some issues, energized, kind of doing some new things. Nina, who is an old friend of mine, not an old friend, but a long-time friend.
Okay. I got your back, Nina.
And as you should, is a longtime friend of mine, is traveling around and really trying to energize people. And if you've seen her speak, it's always amazing.
The best.
But what I will tell you is I think that what you're going to see there is, people who come on your show actually live there and with a purpose, which is to say, kind of put a lot of what we're talking about here into kind of practical perspective and hopefully to convince people that politics, there's a lot that's done in politics to drive people away from the process. And my fear is always that people give up on it. What I think that we'll be arguing for different reasons and maybe in different ways is that that's just not an acceptable calculus, that ultimately, whether you identify as a Democrat, whether you're outside the Democratic Party, wherever if you're on the left, so to speak, wherever you're at, you have to be engaged and you have to recognize that at this point, I'm not saying it just for good citizenship. Yeah. I'm saying that it is that knife's edge moment. If you get engaged, this is the time where you might actually get what you want, right? It's within, because so much is up for grabs, so much is at stake. And so my argument is get engaged, take it seriously, give it your best shot, because, if we don't, if the forces of light do not prevail, there may not be that much to fight for down the line.
Well,
that's a dark scenario, but
yeah,
it is a dark scenario, and what a perfect note to end on, because it does look like that UAW is going to officially strike.
So that event, the Our Wisconsin Revolution, October 7th, 10 to 7. So it's a whole day thing.
It is.
Richard T. Anderson Center in Pewaukee,
Wisconsin.
In Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and you'll get to see John and Nina and our other friend Harvey Kay. That sounds like a fun little party right there.
We should go.
Come on up.
I'm not going to Wisconsin for that. I'm not flying to Wisconsin right now.
Road trip. You don't have to fly. You can drive.
I just planned a trip that I want to do there's going to be an action November 13th in Atlanta protesting Cop City. And I've already sort of figured out that I need to at least drive up for that. That's at least drivable to me.
Jen's going to end up being at council for some of these.
I'm just going to help them do research and stuff, because you saw that the RICO charges for money laundering for people donating the bail
totally
funds.
Crazy.
There's several folks from Wisconsin that are among those charged, and
the crazy fascism of it.
Great piece written today by Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush. On some of these issues, and it's good to see members of Congress stepping up and talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will be there November 13th at the Weehawken, I can't say it, Forest, wherever that is, but outside of Atlanta.
Guys, if you are not currently checking out John Nichols' work at The Nation, make sure you do. He has a new article dropping tomorrow, so make sure you read up on that. And also, if you have not currently purchased his latest book, the fight for the soul of the Democratic Party. It is done in conjunction with none other than Bernie Sanders.
No.
Oh, no.
Fight for the Soul is my book, our new book, which I understand because there's so many books. But the title is "It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism."
It is okay. My apologies.
That's okay.
To be angry about capitalism, and
I appreciate that because I am.
Yes, and we are still fighting for the soul of the Democrats.
Oh, I've got some anger with those people.
Amen.
Yeah.
John,
Thank you so much, John. Good to see you.
Thank you. Be strong.
Thank you.
Support the union.
Brother. Be well.
Bye.
One of our absolute favorites, no question.
You know,
about
because it's like it's when really smart people come on and they're also reasonable and they're not tools. It's really nice.
Well, again, we both have our own personal experience in the world of journalism, and the profession has. If you want to talk about, there's a lot of different reasons why this country has headed in the wrong direction for many decades. Obviously, it got accelerated under Reagan. It took it to a completely different level under Clinton. But the profession of journalism has been sliding for decades and decades and decades, which is also why we're such big supporters of Jordan Chariton at Status Quo News, and also Greg Palast, who, if journalists look like Greg Palast, that's how journalists always used to look.
But he kind of looks like Inspector Gadget.
Well, that's true, but they had the hat and the pencil and everything, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And if we had journalists that were working on behalf of working class people, which is what they're supposed to be, the journalists are supposed to be of the working class.
I would suggest that there are lots of really, really good journalists. They're just not funded and they don't get the visibility from corporate mainstream media. So there are journalists doing the work. It's just not what most people see when they turn on the TV. Anyway.
Speaking of the working class, and speaking of who should be not allowed but should be getting elected to the United States House of Representatives. It should not be blue bloods. That's not who we need in Congress. We need people in Congress who represent the people, who represent everyday working class people. If you are not of that class, you will generally, there's always exceptions, but it's not the norm. The norm is to elect people of, by, and for them.
And if you guys have any idea as to how hard that is for people who are working people and to run for office, it's absurd.
We know.
We know.
It's not easy.
No.
And if anybody can speak to that, it is one of Jen's former slate mates at Brand New Congress and is running once again to become the next congressional representative of California's 29th district. You know where you love her, Angelica Duenas. Duenas? I still am a gringo, no matter how hard I try. Welcome back to Generational Change.
Hello, thank you so much for having me back. Nice to see you guys. Duenas, yes, that's correct.
And I'm the one practicing on Duolingo every day. Every day.
I'm a native South Floridian. We understand these things. How are you?
You know, I've been better. How are you guys?
These are not easy times. Like, this is definitely not easy times. Yeah. So talk about, first of all, remind me where your district is in California.
I am in the 29th district. It's 100% in LA County. Okay. And we're pretty much the East San Fernando Valley. It's what people know us as. And it goes from Silmar down to Studio City, Toluca, and then over Sun Valley, North Hollywood, over to Van Nuys, Panorama City. So that area.
Right, but so LA, you're the LA area.
Los Angeles, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so how is this? Do you feel like this is different than last time? Do you feel any sort of like change? Like, what's changed for you since the last time you ran?
Well, I'm tired. That's for sure. I'm a working person, and I'm fighting the good fight, but also getting real and, having to get a job. And, I've been on and off of work for a little bit, but mainly because of COVID, actually, that's really what kind of messed me up. Not so much the campaigning, but, just trying to get my budgeting and all of that stuff. I have plans. I have, vacations that I want to have, things like that. So, I've been working really hard to get a job, and a permanent job. And since I've been running, what I've discovered is that people, they Google you. And when they do, the stuff comes up. And so it's been tough getting an interview. and for permanent jobs. And what I've mainly been getting is temporary jobs, and that's where people give me a chance. But it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And running for office isn't easy. And around here, a lot of places are connected to our elected, so it gets even more complicated. Just trying to get to work. So last week I was fired from my job because I'm running for Congress. So it was brought to their attention after I started there that I'm running for Congress. I was new, and I was terminated because of that.
What kind of work? Like, what is it that you do in your real job?
In my real job, I do human resources. I'm a human resources specialist, human resources professional. And I've been doing that for over 10 years now.
Okay. Yeah, obviously there's no law that protects candidates. We're not a protected class of people. So it's like you can be fired for, that's not anything to protect you from it. It really goes to show you how it is so hard for working people to participate in running for office. That's why we have so many elitist people in those positions, because those are the people that can afford to run. That's part of this problem. It's really, really difficult. How's the campaign going? What are you seeing so far, in terms of support?
Yeah, no, and I just wanted to add to that. It is very difficult, but I do want to clarify that actually political action and political activity is a protected class. And so actually we're looking at options. I'm talking to people, to experts, and we're looking at what our options are because we do believe that there was some rights that were some laws that may have been broken in the process.
We're speaking with Angelica Duenas. Maybe it's just the way my tongue is.
I think you're just not capable. It's this Irish thing.
It's tough. It's tough for if you're not
I can
Spanish
do the
speaker.
Duenas. I can do the N. I cannot do the double L or the double R. I don't even try. I can't. I just
Caballero. So I can try. I can work. Just got to work on it. Whatever. At least I try.
No, but the campaign itself, though, you guys, is going well. We have it's all volunteers, and we have some people who have a lot of love for the campaign and who have been through the whole time. And this is our fourth run. So I ran back in 2018 as a green. People forget about that one. Okay. And then 2020, 2022, and then here we are again. And we're starting the signature gathering process next week to get on the ballot. And the next step, we are pretty confident about that. And the primary is going to be in March. And so far, it's just Tony and myself, Tony Cardenas, the incumbent, and myself. So in California, we have the top two systems. So regardless of, where you place, first and second place makes it over to the general, regardless of party. So, we're looking at two Democrats once again facing off in the 29th district come this March.
So you'll be totally done.
One of the things that we've noticed is that there is a lot of political energy out there, but wanting to distance oneself from the two-party duopoly seems to be a very popular trend for a lot of people because they do not feel that they're being represented anymore. Now, of course, big money always plays a big part. Mr. Cardenas never met a corporate check he didn't like, and that unfortunately is a big problem in the state of California. California is not the progressive bastion that people want to pretend that it is. At least in terms of its reputation. You have some very strong pockets, especially in East LA. But there was a significant change that did happen in Los Angeles County in the last election, which I thought was pretty significant. And that was Ken Mejia becoming the new Los Angeles City Comptroller. And that's a very big deal because he does identify with the Green Party. And his tenacity, I think, goes without saying, that he really wanted to make a change for the people of LA. And they finally decided, well, you know what? Democratic Party clearly isn't doing jack squat for us. They might as well be the same party. and he was able to break through. Can you talk about the importance of that election and what that means to continuing the trend of trying to make that change, whether it is within or outside the Democratic Party?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love Kenneth Mejia. I've been, I was one of his volunteers. I think it was like his second and third run for office. He ran for Congress a few times. But just to clarify, yes, he actually is a Democrat. So he actually switched. Yeah, but that doesn't change what he did. And that seat was a nonpartisan seat, but it was a strategic move. And I think that, people need to get smart and need to learn the game. And I think that he did what he needed to do to win, and he did. And so I think that that's what people need to do. We need to learn what the game is. And, these political elites have been utilizing the Democratic Party for their benefit, and it's time for us to do the same. Here in my district, we have the elected Democrats like Alex Padilla, who actually he's from Pacoima, right next door. Tony Cardenas, also Pacoima, and Luz Rivas, who is so we have a senator, a congressman, and an assemblywoman. Okay, very powerful people who within themselves they get 16 delegates to vote for the Democratic, the California Democratic Party, blah, blah. And the rules set aside 14 seats for the community, for the area, so for the regular people to run. They use Tony Cardenas, they use their $1 million, campaign infrastructure. They use their auto dollar and their whatever, and they send out mailers and stuff like that to get these seats that are volunteer seats that are like, like more work than not. Why are they doing it? It's because these people get to vote for the endorsements. And so at the local level, there's like 60 votes or I don't know, like 50 votes to go. They automatically get 30, just like that. There's no way they're going to get challenged. And this is what they do. So it's, we need to learn the game and figure it out if it's even worth the time, because that's a lot of work. Can we get 30 people to like I don't know. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of work. I can't even get 30 people to show up for a canvass once. You know what I'm saying? Let alone join the Democratic Party. So it's a lot of work. And Los Angeles, it's a beast. Hey, the Los Angeles County Democratic Party has been meeting online since forever. I'm an elected member, so when I say the party, that's kind of me and some of those people, but whatever. We've been meeting online since 2020 when we got elected. Next month in October, it's the first in-person meeting for the Los Angeles County Democratic Party since 2020. We've been silenced. It's just a show. You just log into the Zoom and everybody's on mute. Nobody gets to participate whatsoever. It's going to be very interesting. So I don't know, maybe I'll go live and y'all can watch. It's going to be I have a feeling it's going to be crazy because people have not been able to speak for literally 3 years.
That's actually worse than us. Ours is pretty bad, but that's bad.
No, it's bad. I mean, people, they actually set up the rules in anticipation. They already have I forget the person that they're supposed to go over there and snatch you up and all this stuff. They created the whole infrastructure. They're ready to just shut it down. And people have been learning Robert's rules or whatever it is. Dude, it's rough out there. If you don't have a legal degree and stuff like that, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah. No, they'll bulldoze you.
That's what they do. They create, and then if you learn the rules, they'll switch it up on you. You know what? Middle of the game, boom, we get another ball. What the hell? You know what I'm saying? They're all those juggling and fire stuff. We're where did the fire come from? Okay, I'm being sorry. But just like that, they bring in all these random things that it's crazy. It's almost like it's lunacy.
The problem with the electoral process, and this has been stemming for about 7 years now, is that it's becoming a vote of no confidence on the part of a lot of populist left voters in this country, because the Democratic Party at the very top has admitted that they will rig the primary process. Mm-hmm. And it's that simple. And so once that happens, you will basically lose generations of voters forever. So when people say, well, the young people got to come out for Joe, or they got to do this, it's like, not really, because if you lose faith in the process, then in their eyes, it basically doesn't matter who's there. To them, the system is broken beyond repair, and ones are going to start looking in other directions in terms of where that support's going to come from. And without question, our feeling is that any substantial changes that are going to come in this country is going to come through the labor movement. And right now, you obviously have a very significant labor movement in your own backyard that's taking place every day. Apparently, it's day, I think for SAG-AFTRA, it's day 135. And for the writer's strike, it's somewhat similar in that regard.
They're longer.
Those are the types of rallies, labor rallies, even if they're not, I mean, granted, a lot of them live in, the western part of LA County, not the eastern part. However, being there in that presence is a place where Mr. Cardenas not only will not show up, but if he did, he's probably not going to be very welcome there. And so there's a lot of support that can be found in those types of groups. There's also a lot of local networking groups in the greater Los Angeles area that have nothing to do with the Democratic Party, but they would sure as hell support your efforts, because a lot of people are desperate right now, significantly desperate. It's not just East LA, it's everywhere. And there is a desire to have this new leadership. And to me, that's where a lot more of the support, the volunteers will be found. They're not going to be found at these Democratic clubs.
No.
They are very hand selective in terms of who they will permit it. And very often the only people who are permitted to get on any type of a committee position are loyal foot soldiers. Mm-hmm. And if you are not a loyal foot soldier, you will be excommunicated faster than you can see it coming. And they do it down here in red Florida. You can imagine how they do it in super blue California. It's probably so.
Oh yeah, it's very true. Every single one of these winning campaigns, from Kenneth Mejia to gosh, I'm forgetting. There's like 3 in the city council, and I'm like blanking on their names. And these insurgent campaigns, that beat the incumbent or like the top establishment person or whatever, a big majority did not get the clubs. I mean, a good chunk did, but like most of them did not. And it was a shock. People who lost, who did super well, they did it without any or hardly any of the official club support. Why? Because the people who join the clubs tend to be a certain type. Here in LA, we have different types of clubs. So there are some rebel clubs out there and stuff that have no problem going against the establishment and all that good stuff. But for the most part, if you're that much of a Democrat that you're like joining a group, like a club, like you're probably not challenging the type of. So like by all means, we have to like reach out and do networking with other groups and other networks. I have not been able to actually like connect with anybody. I've gone out there and supported and driven by and like whatever, but with the kids and everything like that. But I haven't connected with anybody over there. I haven't had the time, but now I do. So I'll be probably joining them. There's a couple of them. They're actually not that far from my house in the valley. So out in Burbank,
I was going to say you're not far from Burbank. That's what I was just thinking. That's pretty close to you.
So I've been seeing all of that. So I'm getting ready to go over there and do a couple of days with them. Yeah, bring some waters.
Let me ask you this. What are your top 3 issues? What are your top 3?
Okay. I mean, there's so much going on out here in the valley, but
let's say you were doing your whatchamacallit, your lit that you're going to drop, your door hanger.
Yeah,
right? Like,
I know. Don't remind me. I know I have to do all that new stuff.
Right. What's your top 3?
It's going to be it's housing for all, healthcare for all, and a third. It would be like a Green New Deal mixed in with like guaranteed jobs. So we have the East Valley, the environment. I mean, we're dealing with so many things. We have terrible drainage. We have dirty waters. We have dirty industry. We have dirty air. We had a methane leak for 3 years down the street. And like LADWP didn't tell us, as the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, which they are actually a city agency, and they had a methane leak and they did not let the public know. They still haven't publicly like official, like, properly announced or informed the public about it still to this day. And that was like, I think it became public like 3 years ago, and it had been going on for like 3 years before then. They finally patched it up, allegedly. So I don't know, like at this point, like who knows? But but I would say housing, because like in Los Angeles, as you know, it's bad. It is so bad. And what makes me angry, it's so many things, because this is like 30 years worth of BS. Like this is like Reagan on this way. It's like shutting down on the mental health facilities and all this stuff because people don't want to say it. And it sounds ugly and this and that. And it's going to be complicated and, freedoms and all that good stuff. But there's a lot of people who are out there in the street, and I have an autistic son, and I have 5 children, and I like to think that, he's going to be okay. But you never know. And when I look at these people out on the street, some of these people, you can clearly see there's something else going on, and it breaks my heart. When I see old people, I don't want to start crying. When I see old people, oh my God, out in the street, I don't even care if they're like calling me crazy names. Like, it's heartbreaking. Like, it shouldn't be. So housing for all, we need to figure out how to get people onto treatment. And that one, I haven't really thought about it too thoroughly, but
that's part of healthcare.
We have to. That's it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's why I don't know like what to call myself anymore. I'm like a common sense Democrat right now, I guess is what I like to call myself. And we need to get people into treatment. I have a brother, an older brother. He's a grown ass person, and if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. And they're violent, and they're destructive, and they're mean, and this, that, and the other. And I'm not the only one. Our neighbors are going through it, the whole thing. And in Latino culture, like, you don't throw away your people, right? So it's like, AKA, you enable them AF. So my mom's been like, what? Anyways, that's a whole other thing. But the thing is, because there's no options, because like it's either like this or like nothing, and there's not real options out there, and we can't force them into anything. Nope. It's crazy, And so, housing, because like on the flip side too, you have people stuck in violent situations because nobody has an option. It's like, well, let him stay and I'll just go. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. And even that's not an option for people because they can't afford to leave, the chaos or it's a mess. It's a mess. And then jobs, we need to get young people working. I mean, I'm also thinking about like, I don't know, I guess maybe like a mandatory thing is a little excessive, but like maybe like a 2-year paid program where like at the end of the thing, like you're going to come up and you have some options of like, maybe like, I don't know, like remember like the grant, right? Either a house or go to school or
civil
and everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is my point. And again, I don't do bans or mandates, but I think you incentivize the hell out of it is what you do. Mm-hmm. You make it a very appealing thing. It's not hard to do with carrots and not sticks. But I agree.
That's so true.
Some sort of service core option for people if they choose that. And then that should be, you should get the same kind of benefits that you would get in a military service, but for civil service, whatever. But I also support a federal jobs guarantee. And I think we need a federal jobs guarantee. Yep. I think that's more the answer than anything that would be UBI related. Just from simply just looking at the economics, right? Like
I think that I love like some sort of programs for families, people with families, people who are super low income, some sort of subsidies right there. I think that would be the best way to keep people from going homeless. Like just getting people off the street and back into housing is so expensive. These nonprofits around here are super gross too. Like you take a look at what they're doing, and they're all like getting paid bank. Like, okay, you're getting paid more than the mayor. Like that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so gross. It's so disgusting. And it's almost like they're fetishizing, like, it's just disgusting. And so what's the solution? Fuck, I don't know. Like it's addressing the corruption.
No, here's the solution, Angelica. This is the solution to the unhoused situation. You give them houses. That solves that they would be unhoused. See, that's to me, it's one of those things that
you get them housed, but I mean, it's not that easy, girl.
No, but that is the solution, and the fact that we have so many, first of all, empty, unlived in houses, and also we've got so many people living on the street. That's a failed system.
We need to create, like, we need to start taxing people who have, like, you know, these owners who are like buying up all these houses and they're leaving them empty. We should be blocking them. The city of Los Angeles should be enacting their power of eminent domain and snatching those houses back and figuring out what to do something better with them, with the community, giving people the opportunity to own where they live and stuff, instead of moving all the way out to like the desert or whatever. There's all kinds of things, like as far as the homelessness issue, like we need to be serious. And you know what, just housing isn't enough. We need to make sure we do this right. And you know what, we've been seeing a lot of chaos too in just housing, because you move in drug addicts and people who are not ready to be, you know, and then you move them into with children. Like my God, I have 5 children. Do you understand how many like ball sacks and like disgusting things that they've already seen, and how many conversations I've had to have? I guarantee you, people in Pacific Palisades and Beverly Hills and over on the west side, they're not having to deal with that. So we need to be serious and we need to address the issue. Like these people who are also going out there and like, let the people be on the street. Like, you know what? You need to refocus your energy, and we need to figure out how to really get these people treatment, because the drug epidemic is out of hand, and we need to address it all, and we need to address who caused it, and they need to pay for it. Like these drug manufacturers and all that, it's so bad, you guys, and it's all around us. And who has to deal with it? Poor people of color, not freaking like bougie ass people. No, us. And it's not fair. And you know what? And we have heart for everybody, but we need to get real, and we need to get real solutions, and we need to get people into treatment, or they need to go somewhere where they're going to be taken care of while they're still like not ready or whatever. But we need to figure it out, and we cannot have these people be coming and going, because my kids' school have been locked down. We've had people with machetes. We've had naked people. I mean, this is what we're dealing with on a daily basis. And it's not fair for these people either. They deserve care. They deserve health care, humane compassion. And what we're saying is like, oh, freedom. They have the freedom to go rot in the street and die.
Well, it's just
it's so sad
that people think that we could ever be better off when there's people living like that. Like it's just not good for any of us. The drug issue, the mental health issue, to me, those are all within the realm of what we should be having with universal health care. Both of those issues are health care.
Oh, absolutely. Universal health care. How much of that could have been addressed and being fixed? You know, people who were on medical care and they got on painkillers, right? And how much of those people could have been prevented from going out there if we had universal health care? Right?
I'll do another intersection for you, another intersection back to housing. Imagine the amount of people that would be able to afford housing if they didn't have to give up all their money for healthcare. Imagine the amount of people.
Oh, yes.
Medical bankruptcy. So if you think of it that way, the amount of people that would have better housing options, if not for high insurance and premiums and all that, that's just common sense. So
absolutely. It's cruel. It's cruel in this country. It's freaking cruel. You know, and you're talking with the mandates. Absolutely. You know, with the mandates, back then, I'm anti-mandate. I used to say, like, let's get people universal health care. How are you going to force people to go do a thing that they don't trust, and then you're going to tell them like they're on their own if something goes wrong? Like, that doesn't even make sense. You know, that does not even make sense.
It makes profit.
Oh yeah. Okay. Absolutely. And then, you know, here we are, like, it's like, and it's just so gross. The whole thing has been so gross. And it's the working class who ends up having to pay for it. You know, it's the working class who died. Here in our district, we had disproportionate amount of COVID deaths, you know, depending on what numbers you're looking at, right? And why were people dying around here? It's because people are overweight. We have terrible, environment. Have dirty air, people are diabetic, people have heart issues, all this stuff. And we're not addressing all of these things, that it comes back to having clean water, having clean air, having healthy food, having health care, having access to the things like that any like advanced society should have access to. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, we're clearly seeing the capitalistic collapse of Western civilization, like in real time, because when you've got so much wealth that people's yachts have yachts, and yet there's people that can't get clean water, that level of disparity is completely untenable, right? Like that, it's so absurd that sometimes I feel like I'm in a bizarro world. I could almost like, it's infuriating to me. And I don't mind rich people. And I say it 1,000 times, I don't mind rich people. I don't care how rich the rich get. I care how poor the poor are. And if the poor were proportionately going up with the, I don't care if there's even a divide. You could have your little divide. I just think the people that are at the bottom need to have a standard of living of dignity and respect. That's all I'm saying, you know?
Yeah, I don't agree. I think that the rich are definitely, there is such thing as being too rich.
Well,
like,
yes, every billionaire is a failed policy choice. I do agree with that.
Jeff Bezos, as we speak, is building a $100 million mansion in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why the disconnect is so great. And one of the things about growing up in Latino culture that is different for a lot of the white suburbanites that they don't seem to understand, especially when it comes to the gun debate. And when it comes to all the shootings that we're seeing around the country, I've tried explaining this a million times to people that are more privileged than they can possibly understand, is that the reason these shootings are happening on the regular is because people are so desperate in this society and have given up on this society. They just don't care anymore. And they're willing to take as many people with them as they can while they can. And the ones they want to single out are the white supremacists who want to kill black people. But the reality is this type of stuff is going on everywhere.
And
it's going on all the time. And you're talking about kids bringing machetes to school because they are effing desperate and they can't survive. So the more this goes on, the worse this is going to get. And so the more that people in the undemocratic party that pretend like they are the democratic party of the two, they are not. They're equally as bad. They just do it in different ways. And so we have to figure out how to unite labor and the working class of this country. If we do that, then things will get better. But if we decide that we are going to be divided and figure out ways to not unite around labor issues, because everything we're talking about here, universal health care, housing, again, I could get on board with furlough programs with people that get housing and they have to work to stay in the house. But as long as there is a give and take, that a person has a freaking roof over their head, instead of going out and living on Skid Row and scaring the bejesus out of people. Again, what they do in Hollywood is the same that they do in our Hollywood, because we have our own Hollywood here in South Florida. You know what they do? They do the same thing as they do on the West Coast. They sweep them up. They basically kick them out. They basically put them under the bridges on the 405 and things like that. That's what they do. And that's not going to change. That's a policy failure because, again, it's all about what do the rich and powerful want. So if you want to change that narrative can change, and it can change very easily. But having candidates that are running for office that are leading on a labor movement is what's going to be the game changer. It's not going to be the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is hated more than the Republican Party right now, and statistics bear that out. But if you are willing to fight for working people and work with it in the confines of the labor movement, that's the winner. And that's what's going to change because it's all we got. Anything else is
well, I mean, on that note, I mean, it's just it's tough because a lot of the times, like, the people support a candidate or something like that, or what ends up really happening is the challenger, whether it's like the person who might be the most appropriate or who might actually connect and whose policies and platform and etc. Matches what they say that they stand for. That's not how it goes. Tony Cardenas has gotten all of the, like, you know what I'm saying? Like these are unions at the top. Like it's really sad. So it's complicated. And so at the end of the day, you have to figure out, and like it's almost like each fight is on their own type of thing. Almost. It's really sad, but it is what it is type of thing, because we have limited resources. And it's like, I'm a mother of five, like, trying to like do that, then the other. And it's like, Angelica, why don't you go here? Angelica, why don't you go there? It's like, you know what? We need to, like, try and figure out, because give, but you don't get nothing in return. It's tough. It's really hard. And like, you have to print union, you have to do this, and you have to go there. And if you go somewhere, you have to go this place. it gets super duper expensive, and you know you have to do it a certain way, or else you're super evil. And it's like, okay, so because I use my local printer, that's a small business, and whatever, like the big case might be for like t-shirts, and they don't have the bug on it, like you're gonna get crucified, right? So it's like you gotta like it's when you're in a certain campaign, you know, it's hard. Unions, my mom was a Teamster for like over 22 years, and you know we love them. You know, we support the teachers, we do what we can, but you know it's hard. It's hard out here, and when you're running on Steam and stuff, and people talking about, like, you know, I have other people who want to, like, why don't you help me, Angelica, this, that, and the other, and like coattails or whatever. It's like, girl, I'm still sewing my coat together. I don't even have a coat ready yet. And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll try my best, but I have no money. I have no time. You know what I'm saying? I can advise you, and people want to, you know, you have to put in the work too. And it's hard. It really is. And so my thoughts are, you know, and my, oh my God, my heart is with everybody striking right now. Oh my God, people are losing their houses. People are losing their vehicles. I mean, people are like going through so much stress. They're losing their health care. It's really disgusting. And then you're hearing these studio executives talking about, yeah, we need to make them lose everything. Blah, blah, blah. It's freaking disgusting. And this is who we're dealing with. These people are just, and it's like, so it's really hard. And there's so many things going on right now. And you know, and here I am thinking, like, how am I going to pay for this and that? And I have to sign up for food stamps and try, you know what I'm saying? And yet I'm still over here. It's a little embarrassing sometimes if I stop and think about it. Not that it's embarrassing if you have it, but like here I am, like running for Congress and doing all these things and stuff like that. And it's like, sometimes it's like, I wish you know, if I wasn't running right now, I would have not lost my job. If they wouldn't have bothered to look into whatever, and if I wasn't actively running, I would have a job, you know. And it's hard, but you know, fuck it. Now I'm gonna fight harder.
Yeah, there you go.
AngelicaForCongress.com. If you're out here, come in, like, help us, like, you know, sign up for like, get signatures, donate, please, donate if you can. We got 43% of the vote in 2020 with $80,000 against $1,400,000. Tony Cárdenas, like, over 26 years at that point, whatever. Now he's like 30 years of, you know, money isn't everything, and money goes a long way, and we're very creative. You guys should, like, just, like, you know, if in 2020, if I would have had like $20,000 more and like 5 more people, we would have won. I swear.
Well, good. Then you know what you need to do to win. Guys, support Angelica, because it's really important to support non-corporate candidates that are running and trying to fight the good fight. And especially ones that have had successful prior campaigns, because then you know that there's potential there. So it's a smart move.
Amen to that. And obviously all the best. I know it's going to be a rough road, but hopefully this conversation was fruitful. Let's keep it going. And thank you for doing what you're doing, Angelica. Again, it's a thankless job a lot of the time.
Thank you.
But it's definitely worth fighting for, and we really appreciate you coming on tonight.
It definitely is. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Very nice lady. Running for Congress is a treacherous road that very few people understand. We do.
But then again, I also think having 5 children sounds pretty treacherous too. So for me, it's almost like running for Congress would be a vacation for that. So I'm just saying, like, if I had 5 kids in my house.
You already know my opinion on that. That's why I'm just glad that I wasn't raised Catholic.
Compared to that, I'm not so sure that running for Congress is hard. Like, running for Congress is really, really hard, but 5 kids, I don't know. I'm thinking that,
Well, anything past 2 kids to me is a Brady Bunch situation. So you got to get used to that. And having 5, obviously, it's very difficult.
No, Angelica's good. She's on the right. She's got the right policy. She's feisty. She's good people, for sure.
But I think you've brought this up. There's a lot of electoral fatigue, you know, and people run for too long. These elections take way too much time. That's a big part of the problem as well. For those of you who are tuning in late, we are in our 3rd official year of running this channel.
Look at that. That's so nice, Colin. Yeah. That's so nice.
And it's been a very interesting road, to say the least.
We need to make our orange oranger.
oranger.
Our orange.
This is not as orange as
right.
this
That's
is
what I'm saying. We need to make our orange oranger.
Well, this is only temporary.
I'm
This
just
is only
saying,
for
but
that
3
one
years
moment.
is very. I can't believe I'm doing this for 3 years.
It really does fly, doesn't it? But it's become a big part of our lives.
I've been working for free for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, you can afford to.
And I am thankful for that. But it's like the only reason that it bothers me is that I have a lot of people in my life that I think don't take seriously the stuff that I do and how I contribute because it's not a paid gig. And so there's definitely, like, in my vicinity of people, friends, family, I can tell, like, there's definitely this sort of, like, it's 3 years of in people's minds of me not working.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that.
I'm saying that within my vicinity, like, there are people that do not take seriously what I do. They just think it's like this cute hobby that I have, and yet I think it's like work because I put a lot of effort into it, right? So I don't.
We'll be out canvassing on Saturday.
Not just that. I mean, like, I spend hours and hours reading and learning and trying to be aware of things and keep up on stuff. Like, that to me it's
lending your privilege, as you say.
Yeah.
But
I am lending my privilege. That's good, and I do appreciate that. But it's not paid. That's my point.
On Monday, we will have Case Study QB, friend of the show. There will be lots of things to talk about.
We might have a strike happening.
We will likely have a strike happening. Looking forward to the clips that Jordan, Charity Status Quo News, will be providing tomorrow. Maybe he'll get lucky and get Bernie Sanders to finally have a quick interview, even if it's for only a couple of minutes.
That would be cool.
That would be really cool. And covering it is obviously very important. Remember, we are about transforming politics into service. And that is, in essence, what this is all about. And you can tell, as I've tried to be very understanding, and again, I let, this was really Jen and Angelica's conversation, but at the end, I needed to make it very clear that for somebody who I'm sure is tired of hearing about the comfortable liberals complaining about their little, what I consider to be mostly mundane issues. And I say that they're mundane because ultimately they don't affect the general population the way that the infrastructural problems of this country actually affect us. People are not picking up guns to go and kill people. It is a very, 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 very minuscule, tiny, can't even see percentage of people that actually go out and do that. But it does happen. And it is happening with greater frequency. And why is it happening with greater frequency? Because society's breaking down, and there is no denying that that is the case. The fact that we are even talking about the prospect of a major labor strike right now, this used to happen a lot. But labor has been absolutely decimated in this country. And there are people who really do believe, and they listen to a lot of pontificators out there, particularly on YouTube, that try to convince them that they're going to be rich tomorrow if they just listen to what they have to say. Trust me, they look at you like a bunch of suckers because that's what you are. You're just a bunch of suckers if you listen to what they say. The truth of the matter is, if we had universal health care, a living wage, and universal education, which includes tuition-free trade schools and public college, that would solve more problems than anything else that could possibly be done in this country. And that doesn't even involve a handout. That just involves getting this economy right. And that's what would happen. If you had universal health care, you would have incredibly more labor power because the negotiations of not having to negotiate your health care would be there. Same with individuals at their own jobs. If you had the ability to get tuition-free public college and especially trade schools, you'd be able to learn a skill, which is what it's supposed to be. People need to be able to learn how to deal with our ever-changing economy, especially now that you're bringing AI into the equation. And listening to people in very comfortable financial positions tell you to embrace artificial intelligence when you can't even keep a job. And if that's not enough, you have people like Tim Gurner going out there saying, we need to not only get your asses back to work, we need to raise unemployment by 50%. And no one of any power that is a major job creator, if you will, in this country has stepped. I haven't seen one person come out and say, that's really effed up. And we don't
Is
agree
that Gurner?
with
Is that his
Gurner.
Okay. Mr. Gurner, you can't build your moats wide enough.
That son of a bitch definitely cannot build it wide enough.
Keep talking, bud. Keep talking.
So if you think that the solution is to keep strangling people to death, is not going to result in a massive blowback from this country.
Do people not understand the concept of 6 degrees of separation? Now, if you're Jewish, it's generally 1 or 2, but in reality, 6 degrees of separation, meaning that it's only a matter of time before someone that everybody cares about is affected by some form of this type of injustice that we're talking about, whether it's healthcare, housing, jobs. Like, it's only a matter of time. And even for the very, very wealthy people, now it doesn't happen as frequently to them, but their kids end up ODing. Their kids end up having all sorts of, exactly. And so they end up being victims in different ways, whether it's criminal issues, whatever it is, they end up as victims of the system.
Think about the psychological trauma that a lot of kids will go through growing up in a comfortable, let's say, urban or suburban setting, or even rural setting. And then their economic prospects are nothing like what their parents had. And they feel that they are a complete failure at life if they can't measure up to their own parents, much less society.
But then you have somebody coming along and giving them a scapegoat. And giving them somebody to punch down to and somebody to hate and somebody to blame, whether it's the immigrants or it's, I don't know, whoever it is. It's the transgender people. It's whoever it is. I don't know. It's whoever they can punch down at, right? But it's very easy to manipulate people to doing that when they're so desperate and angry about their circumstances. So it's very easy to lure people into very fascist types of thinking when they're so desperate.
It's like our border crisis. And there are people who want to pretend that this is just an open border policy and that there are people, these brown people that are coming in from these other countries. First of all, they are coming here because they're being directed here. Do you know why they're being directed here? Because there is a labor uprising in this country and the powers that be have no regulation against them whatsoever. And they are going to bring in people from desperate situations to work for pennies on the dollar and fuck labor at the same time.
But of the collateral damage are the people coming over the border. And I also found out something interesting last week. So a friend of mine, her boyfriend works for the FBI. He is in counterterrorism. And one of the things that they do is they track down people that come in that are dangerous, like people that are actually dangerous, like the gang members that come across the border, stuff like that. But here's the thing that I find so fascinating. And this is from an FBI agent, right? All this nonsense with the wall and all that is a complete waste of time. The reason it's a complete waste of time is the people that they're tracking that are really dangerous actually come in here legally. So the majority of people that would be coming in that are terrorist people, that would be dangerous people, that are the scary people, they're not running across with their kids and a couple of bags across the Rio Grande at the border. Those are not the dangerous people. The dangerous people are coming in completely legally and doing damage. So, and I'm just, so that is from an FBI agent perspective who deals with actual people that come in to cause harm.
Colanello, I know you mean well, but it is a crisis. And you can spin it however which way. That the border situation is a crisis, but it is a manufactured crisis.
It's a crisis for the people that are getting killed trying to just live their lives.
And it's a crisis for people in this country who are trying to get a better life for themselves through the labor movement. The people at the top will do everything in their power. And I mean everything. If you think that they've been moving yet, you wait and see what happens when UAW does actually go on strike. And if that starts, look at somebody like Bill Maher and Drew Barrymore. That is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah, no, then you can get deeper. And I'm sitting here seething right now about Greg Abbott and barbed wire in the river. This is only going to get worse.
And who in the effing hell asked for Keith Olbermann's opinion about Bill Maher?
Nobody asked for Keith Olbermann's opinion about anything.
Like, people want to put him on a
Are you kidding?
He can seriously get as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Keith Olbermann.
He is the worst of the absolute worst. The people out there that are not seeing the reality for what it is, that when people are coming to this country, when they are absolutely desperate and are being led in without any type of, there's no impunity whatsoever at the border. And there's a reason for that, because they want people working for slave wage. That is never going to change. The only way it does change is if there really is a collective uprising of labor in this country where people put their foot down and say, we're not doing this anymore. And for the people who are desperate, recognize that this is also what happens when you create an environmental crisis. That's also a huge part of the problem. We have an environmental crisis where people can't survive in the parts of the world where it is completely unmanageable in terms of the heat, in terms of the famine, in terms of the superstorms. All of these things are interconnected. And they're only getting worse. If you are objective to the realities of the world right now, you will notice every day it gets a little worse.
Yeah.
And if you look at it in a year vacuum, it's bad. 3 years, really bad. 5 years, holy cow, are we going to hell?
Well, we're getting up to like how many hurricanes a year? Eventually, it's like it's Russian roulette. But yeah, it's not going to get any better.
Nope, it's not.
Travers, all clowns matter. Okay, seriously, man. Just
So
keeping it real.
keep it all in perspective. This is not an anti-immigration policy. This is an anti-corporate policy.
Which policy about the border?
At the border.
Yeah, but the collateral damage is my problem.
Sure.
Okay, there are when I look at the people that are coming over at the border, those are people that are just in such a bad way.
Desperate.
And like, I think we should be inviting them in and giving them housing and some food and stuff. But then again, I think we should do that for our people too. So, you know.
And the argument, of course, circles the drain because there are tens of millions today. If we are being completely objective about how many people in this country today are this close to falling off the cliff, it's probably close to 100 million.
Wait till October 1.
Because that's coming. Because when the student loan payments start again,
That's a
oh
thing.
boy. Oh boy. And the president has the
homelessness is going to go up.
The fact that the president has the, and this is the one thing, this is why I didn't want to get into the weeds with John, because you know we could talk for 2 hours.
Oh, I love talking to him. He's so smart.
But the problem that John is not recognizing, and a lot of others are not recognizing, is not only does the president have the authority to cancel all of student debt, but he's not only not going to do that, he's going to let the payments start. And he has the authority to stop that if he wanted to. And he's not going to do it.
October 1 is going to be very... I think it's going to be a bigger deal than people realize. I do. I both Grumbine on this.
Well.
I think that actually it won't be October 1. That's the major problem. It'll be more like November 1 when people can't make rent that month.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have like the unhoused situation magnified as soon as all the student loan payments are going to come due, because you can't.
I just cannot imagine.
And thanks to Joe Biden, they're with you forever.
And I just cannot imagine that there is the people on the Hill who are not, how there's not rumblings on the Hill of how bad this is going to get.
They're
Like,
bragging about what he did.
Of course, well, but again, that's the people who want the, you know,
It's so silly.
Was it Bernie who said they're okay with the ship going down as long as they have a first class ticket? And that's kind of how they look at it. They're like, well, you know, we're going down, but hey, if we've got a first class ticket, that's good enough for me. It's not good enough for me, it's not good enough for you, and it's not good enough for the overwhelming majority of people, which is why the numbers bear that out. So, with that said, keep fighting the good fight. UAW is very likely going to strike. At least that's what it looks like.
You know what? And my understanding is that they're going to be employing a very different strategy with this. And my understanding is that they're going to do it in such a way that what's going to happen is they're going to strike in a couple of plants, so that they're not necessarily going to go through the strike fund, see what that does, and then start doing different ones and adding different plants. And so management, ownership will have no idea which plants are coming. It's going to make it really hard for them to be on top of it. Yes.
Good.
So it's a strategy that both preserves the strike fund and keeps them guessing as to they won't know where needs staffing or what's going on. Whereas if they did it all at once, that in some ways it runs out the strike fund and it makes them being able to sort of have a strategy better. So I think this is going to be a really interesting, I love Sean Fain. I do.
I got really passionate tonight because I get a lot of this distraction that so many people have when they really just can't see exactly what the real problem is and why these things become so much greater. So many of these problems are easily correctable. It's not like there isn't that there's a magic formula that's involved that would not allow us to rectify the circumstances for tens of millions of people in this country.
Adam Sandler. What am I missing? Adam Sandler.
I don't know what that's about.
I don't know. Maybe is there a different Adam Sandler?
No. There's only one Adam Sandler.
Well, I don't see how that would have anything to do about it. I don't know. I don't see him as a fascist. I think that's a little bit weird.
The bottom line is labor needs to unite. Period. All labor. And I don't give a damn what your political persuasion is, because there is a very, very small percentage in the world, not just this country, but in the world that run everything. They do. I'm in commercial real estate, and I've seen numbers that you couldn't ever wrap your mind around. Property ownership, like where I am in South Florida, I know one client that owns over 100 properties that is valued at tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's just one person.
Do you want a sticker? You want a gold star? I'm gonna give you a gold star.
And this is all over the place. For people that can't rub 2 cents together, I can assure you that that one person, even with their wealth, is so far down on the totem pole compared to the people who really run the show.
Guys, passion is the second pillar of like my entire philosophy. It's always reason, passion, and justice. Reason, passion, justice.
Just remember, and he was absolutely right, what John said earlier about Tim Gurner. He is speaking for that class.
Oh, I love that.
And we know he's speaking for that class because no one in that class rejected what he said. They've all been stone silent about it. And you know why they're stone silent? Because normally they would probably come out and say that he's right. They're stone silent because they agree with him and they know that the backlash against him has been universal.
They'd be better off if they were just stoned.
Maybe so. But somebody eventually within that class, frankly, I don't give a shit if it's Elon Musk, but somebody in that class has to sound the alarm. They have to do it. If they don't, this country, this world is going to hell.
And all I can do is this is all I can do, people, is keep directing people to aim their anger in the correct direction. It's like a flight attendant, like this way. People go this way with the anger because people are enraged. And I am not a pro-violent person, but if somebody were to be violent,
it's understandable.
I would just appreciate it if they would aim it in the direction of the people that have the control of the situation, which is up here. Aim it up. We don't hit down.
Thank you, Wesley. And great to see Wesley Miles, Mr. MMT himself. We have to, anytime I see any of our MMT friends in the chat, it's just a reminder that we need to get Mr. Grumbine back on the show again soon. It is correct. And the fight for so many people that are out there, that's also the problem that we face being in the political arena.
Oh, I see. That's what it is. Okay.
And being informed the way that we are informed. The truth of the matter is we talk about how there's a very small microcosm of people that really run the show in this country and around the world. It is a very small percentage of people that are involved in the political process and actually know what's going on, what's really going on.
Yeah, and I definitely do not know like inner workings of the Hollywood stuff. I appreciate the information.
Think about how many people are involved in the political process on the regular that you guys will see, whether in local circles in reality or especially on social media, and you're looking at what these people are saying and how they're thinking, and you think to yourself, this is worse than people who aren't even involved. They're so ill-informed, they're making this situation even worse. So those are the battles that we have to fight.
Oh my God, when Congress people sometimes say things where I'm just, I don't know.
There are a lot of people out there who are going to have to come to terms with the fact that there are going to be a lot of people who will support the labor movement and the fight that we're in right now, and they love Donald Trump. And if you can't accept that, then you're part of the problem, not the solution. What you do is you break bread with those people and you educate, not even in a condescending way, but you show them where the differences lie between what the populist left is pushing for versus the populist right.
You don't show people hope, you be the hope. That's
Amen.
what Cornel West says.
Absolutely.
Guys, if you have not read his book, Race Matters, and it's been around a while, it's an older book. It's quite good. It's not a long read. It's just really, really good. I suggest it. And actually, because it's Cornell, I did the audio. I highly recommend the audio because he does his own narrating and he's amazing. So it's better. Like hearing him talk is really.
We'll leave you guys with this thought when it comes to how you actually make friends and influence people. We have a clip that's going to drop tomorrow that is about Dr. West hiring Peter Dow. I don't agree with the hire. I don't think you agree with it either. And you know what? I still think Dr. West running for president is a great thing.
Same.
So for those who, without naming names,
please,
think that it is appropriate because they disagree with this hire to just kick Dr. West to the curb,
what is wrong with you people?
Don't pay attention to them.
Please.
They are not in it for any reason other than their bottom line.
Please.
And that's it. You have to be able to say that even if I don't agree with you on this, I'll agree with you on that. Always look for the silver line. Always.
Like I don't necessarily think it's what's in the best interest. And I hope I'm wrong on that. But I'm still like hopeful in general for that campaign.
I disagree with you, Colinello. There absolutely is populist right, and it's not racist.
No.
Not even a little bit. Now, are there racists that find their way into populist right movements? Of course.
No, there are just regular working people. I'm telling you. I'm telling you it exists.
The difference between populist left and populist right is pretty simple. It's to what degree do you want the government involved in your life? But there is a populist right. 100%.
And I'm going to give you the best example. So I recently had to have some tile work done. And this man and woman came to the house. They were not a couple or anything, but for this company. And she was a member of the LGBTQ community. And he was an older Black gentleman. And both of them, and it came up, they were listening to some sort of podcast that was definitely kind of right wing when they were doing the work. Like I heard it in the bathroom. And when I went in to talk to them, again, they are two totally different demographic groups from each other. And they were both Trump supporters. And, you know, it's like, so a woman in the LGBTQ community and an older Black man. And I'm telling you, they are not in the neo-Nazi group. They are not in that group. And they would consider themselves right-wing populists. And that is why they like Trump. Now, it's misguided, I believe. But those are the majority of the people.
Those are two people
that I just met
I can almost
recently.
guarantee you that if Bernie Sanders was running for president, not in the version of the Bernie Sanders from 2020, but the Bernie Sanders of 2016, I guarantee you they would support Bernie over Donald Trump. And that's the difference.
And I do think that the racists have also found a home there. And that they're definitely getting more acceptance than I would like to see them just getting in general. But the majority of people that go to a Trump rally are not those people.
No,
they're just not.
They're not.
And
people like to be
working people.
And people like to be overly dramatic about who they really are and what they represent. Don't get me wrong, 5 to 10% of that crowd are a bunch of clowns. There's no question that they are. But the overwhelming 85, 90, 95% of the population of the people that go to these events, they're just regular working people. That's all. And some are much more well off than others, but they see it as a community, much like the Bernie Sanders rallies used to be. And it's a shame that we don't have them anymore.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Bottom line, we need to be sticking together and fighting on the labor front. That's it. Best to UAW. Perhaps they will strike. We'll see. Let's see how long they stick it out. We're so grateful that you guys showed up tonight. Obviously, if you are currently a member of our channel, remember we are demonetized, at least for the next 2 months.
We are.
So $5 a month gets you in the door. $10 a month gets you Mansion Parliamentarian.
Actually, no, it doesn't. And here's why it doesn't. Because we do have a new $10 patron.
Oh, we do?
We do. And I'm actually I want to send him a t-shirt.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to do. No, well, you could have that one, but I'm going to send him one of
$25 a month gets you one of these bad boys.
Yeah.
And I believe it is Chris Garrett, who is our new...
Yes. Well, he just runs tonight, but we had somebody come through and I'm like...
Oh, we have two. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, somebody came through like the other day.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Chris is saying that he now just came through.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, guys. It's really helpful.
To each and every one of you that are supporters of our channel, we're extremely grateful. And you know what? Healthy disagreement is a good thing, because that's what you need. We can't all agree on everything, and we're never going to. And those that want to just stay, reason that we're demonetized, Jen has her theory, but we're not going to get into it.
You know what? It could be a million reasons. It happens because somebody calls somebody else and says what somebody says to somebody, and then they just do it. We weren't given a particular reason.
No, but we fight on behalf of workers. And when you do that, and you are in any way considered a threat, even if it's a little threat, they want to basically put you in your place and show you that we can take it all away. That's why, much like this channel is not something we rely on for a living, it's the same way I feel about people who work in politics for a living. I can't trust you.
If that's what you do for a living.
Yeah, can't trust you. Because ultimately push comes to shove and you will pick your job over the cause.
See, here's the thing. I think when you talk, like Travers, you want reasons for demonetization. Okay, you take your pick. I talk about Julian Assange. I talk about things like the deep state. I talk about things like, Palestine. There's a lot of reasons why people would want to shut up what I say. But I actually think in my case, it's personal. I do. I think it's personal.
Yeah, there's always going to be that element.
Yeah, because I'm not, and the reason I think it's personal isn't because I'm in any way self-important, because I'm not. It's actually the opposite of that. The reason I think it's personal is because I am not huge. I don't have a big platform. I'm not like Joe Rogan or somebody that would need to be stifled or anything like that. So the fact that we got demonetized says to me that it was somebody doing it to me personally, especially since we haven't done anything different than we've done within the past 3 years. So yes, I do think that somebody called me out and specifically made some, connections and had me demonetized. I do, because I'm not that big. If we were big, then I'd say, yeah, well, the corporate powers, but nobody.
Just remember, your contribution goes to helping us pay our producer and a content creator. And that's it. And
yeah.
We are very grateful for that. So thank you all. It means the world. Smash that like button, subscribe, share, do all those wonderful things that we've requested of you. Of course, go to Cash App if that's where you choose to make a contribution, $Jen Change.
Always helpful.
We'll see you Monday.
Bye.